Hello and welcome back to Simulation Theory. I'm Edward Clark and today's episode is called Glitches in the Code. Now, if you're anything like me, you've probably wondered at least once, maybe while staring at a particularly stubborn traffic light or watching your computer freeze for no reason, if reality itself might be, well, a bit buggy. But before we get to the so-called glitches, let's rewind a bit and talk about where this whole simulation idea actually comes from. So the modern simulation hypothesis really took off in 2003 thanks to philosopher Nick Bostrom. He put forward what's now called Bostrom's trilemma. I always get the order mixed up, but let's see if I can get this right. First, almost all civilizations like ours go extinct before they get the tech to run realistic simulations. Second, if they do survive, they just aren't interested in running ancestor simulations. And third, here's the kicker. If neither of those is true, then we're almost certainly living in a simulation right now. It's a bit of a logical trap, isn't it? If advanced civilizations can make countless simulated worlds, then statistically, we're probably in one of them, not the original. But you know, this isn't just a modern obsession. If you look back, you'll find echoes of this idea in ancient philosophy. Plato's allegory of the cave, for example, people chained up, only able to see shadows on a wall, mistaking those shadows for reality. Or in Hindu philosophy, there's the concept of Maya, the idea that the world is an illusion, a kind of cosmic dream. Even in Islamic thought, there's this notion of the world as a delusion. It's almost as if across cultures and centuries, people have sensed that reality might not be quite what it seems. Actually, this reminds me of a class I taught a few years ago. One of my students, brilliant chap, bit of a film buff, compared Descartes' evil demon to the Matrix. He said, isn't Descartes just talking about the Matrix, but with a demon instead of a computer? That sparked a whole debate in class about whether ancient skepticism is really that different from our modern simulation anxieties. I'm not sure we ever settled it, but it's fascinating how these questions keep coming back, just dressed up in new technology. Now let's talk about why this idea has gained so much traction lately. Part of it is just how fast our technology is moving. I mean, look at virtual reality. 10 years ago, it was clunky and pixelated, and now you can put on a headset and be somewhere else entirely. And artificial intelligence, well, that's a whole other rabbit hole. Some folks like Elon Musk have gone so far as to say there's a 99.9% chance we're already in a simulation. I'm not sure I'd put the odds quite that high, but it does make you think. There's also this field called information physics. Physicist Melvin Vopson has argued that information isn't just abstract, it actually has mass, and it might be a fundamental building block of the universe. He even came up with something called the second law of infodynamics, which, if I'm remembering right, says that entropy in an information system tends to stay the same or decrease. It's a bit like a computer compressing files to save space. The idea is that the universe might be optimizing itself, just like a simulation would. But maybe the weirdest clues come from quantum physics. The observer effect, for instance. Particles don't seem to have definite properties until someone measures them. It's almost as if the universe only renders reality when we look at it, like a video game saving processing power. Then there's the delayed choice experiment, where decisions made in the present seem to affect the past. I know it sounds bonkers, but it's real physics and quantum entanglement. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance, where two particles can be linked instantly, no matter how far apart they are. Some people argue this makes more sense if everything is being processed by a central CPU, so to speak. That's equidistant to all points in the simulation. I mean, I'm not saying that's what's happening, but it's a tempting analogy. And then there's the fine-tuning of the universe, the way the constants of nature seem perfectly set up for life. Some suggest that's because we're in one of many simulated universes and the parameters have been tweaked until life could exist. It's a bit like running a simulation over and over until you get the result you want. Of course, that's just one way to look at it. Of course, not everyone's convinced. There are some pretty hefty criticisms of the simulation hypothesis. For one, the computational requirements are, well, astronomical. In 2017, physicists Ringel and Kovrigi argued that simulating even a few hundred quantum particles would require more computing power than there are particles in the universe. So unless our simulators have access to some truly mind-boggling technology, it seems a bit far-fetched. Then there's the question of why the laws of physics are so, well, messy. Frank Wilczek, a Nobel-winning physicist, points out that our universe has all sorts of hidden complexities and inefficiencies. If someone was programming this, why not make it simpler? Why bother with all the extra code, so to speak? And of course, there's the problem of unfalsifiability. If we can't ever prove we're not in a simulation, is the hypothesis even scientific? Or is it just a fancy way of saying, we don't know? And let's not forget the question of motivation. Lisa Randall, another physicist, asks why any advanced civilization would bother simulating us at all. Maybe they'd be more interested in simulating themselves or something entirely different. And then there's the slightly unsettling idea raised by Preston Green that if we ever did find out we're in a simulation, the simulators might just pull the plug. I mean, it's a bit paranoid, but you never know. But if we are in a simulation, what does that mean for us? There's this theory that consciousness itself is a kind of self-simulation generated by our brains. So even if the universe isn't simulated, our experience of it might be. And if life is a kind of role-playing game, as some have suggested, maybe we chose our characters and quests before we started. It's a comforting thought, in a way, that our struggles might have some purpose, even if it's just to level up. And what about death? If we're simulated, is that the end, or is there something beyond? Some people point to near-death experiences as possible glitches, hints that there's a player outside the simulation. I'm not sure I buy that, but it's certainly an intriguing idea. I remember a late-night conversation with a few colleagues, philosophers, physicists, the usual suspects. We got onto the topic of what would happen if we ever proved, beyond doubt, that we're in a simulation. Would the system just shut down? Would the simulators lose interest? We never reached a conclusion, but it was one of those discussions that sticks with you, you know. So, are we living in a simulation? Honestly, I don't know. The arguments are fascinating, the science is mind-bending, and the implications are, frankly, a bit unsettling. But maybe that's the point, to keep asking questions, to keep exploring. Thanks for joining me on this journey through the glitches in the code. We've only scratched the surface, so stick around for future episodes as we dig even deeper into the mysteries of reality. Until next time, take care, and try not to worry too much if your coffee cup suddenly disappears. It's probably just a rendering error.